Folk don't much move to this town. You'll find that its residents are, for the most part, middle-aged adults or older. Many of us graying now, in fact. We're tired and don't much care for the city lifestyle. Truth be told, there have been a number of young couples, families with children that have tried to move in throughout the last few decades. We've turned them all away. Oh sure, they kick up a fuss. Some of them get real insulted, but still, we refuse them. Things didn't always used to be this way, though. We used to have a lot going on here. We used to have youth here. We used to have festivals. I tell you, we lived for those festivals. We'd have races. We'd have sack races, three-legged races, horse races, even frog races. We would have contests. Oh, so many contests. We'd have garden growing, weightlifting, and dog breeding, pie baking, pie eating, dancing, even beauty contests. We would celebrate the festivals of the seasons, the winter solstice, spring equinox, the summer solstice, and finally, the autumn equinox, that great, ominous night, Hallow Eve. We used to go out to the field of mist on that night, tell ghost stories around bonfires, lighting jack-o'-lanterns, eating pumpkin seeds and candy apples. But no more. You see, the children of the town used to make these Hallow Eve lanterns, little paper lanterns that could be lit with a single votive candle. They would decorate them with all kinds of colors and put faces on them so they'd look like monsters or ghosts. On the night of Hallow Eve, they would light up their lanterns. We would have a big parade throughout the main road of the town. And the parade would head to the northeast, out to that old field. Just picture it. All the little ones, they'd get so excited because they would get to walk in the front of the parade. But we called it the Field of Mist. This is due to the fact that it laid lower than most grounds around here. It was a big, low stretch of land that would collect with a thick mist during the cooler months. And on the night of Hallow Eve, we would gather there and have our festival. And the favorite activity of the children was to go out into that great misty field with their lanterns and look for prizes that the adults had hid the night before. Sweet cakes, sugared fruit, little toys, maybe even a shiny coin or two. Well, about 30 years ago, when I was much younger, we were out in the field of mist, celebrating the autumn equinox, celebrating Hallow Eve. And I remember one of the boys was crying. His name was Ollie O'Shea. Kind of a whiny brat as I remember him. He was crying because he said he'd saw one of the other kids sneak out into the field before the prize hunt had begun. He said he'd seen a light out there. Now this was getting the other kids all in a huff, so we went ahead and told them to start the hunt. We told them what we'd always said. Be careful. We didn't hide any prizes past the old yew tree. If you get scared, just holler for us, and we'll come and help you. So off they went with their lanterns in hand, screaming and laughing and calling to each other all along the way. I remember the mist being especially thick that year, but we could still see their lights. We watched them, bobbing back and forth like big fireflies. After a time, we saw them line up. Well, we saw the lantern lights form into a line, and then they started walking in unison, just like in the parade from earlier that night. At first we thought it was just adorable that they were having another little parade of their own through the mist, but then we noticed that they were heading farther and farther away. We saw them pass the old yew tree. We saw them pass the old pond. They started getting close to the woods when many of the parents got worried. They said the kids were going too far out. So about 6 other men and I went off after them. We jogged through that thick mist, calling. But they didn't turn around. They didn't call back. By the time we got about halfway through the field of mist, we couldn't see their lanterns at all. We made it to the tree line of the woods, but we didn't find them. We yelled and called out their names. One of the men thought the kids was playing a game on us, trying to trick us. So we started yelling real loud about how much trouble the kids were going to be in, and that if they didn't come back immediately, there would be no prize hunt next year. Yet the woods were silent, except for the insects and birds of the night. As you can imagine, we started getting really nervous. I was trying not to panic. We'd gone pretty far into those woods. We hadn't seen or heard anything. Finally, we turned back, made our way through the woods, and went to crossing the field. We were shocked, scared. We were getting pretty close to the gathering area of the festival when we heard a child crying. We called out for him, and he called back to us. Then we found him there in the mist, little Ollie O'Shea on the ground, sobbing. His foot had gotten stuck in a rabbit hole while running around with the other kids, and he fell, knocking the candle out of his lantern and twisting his ankle. He had lied there on the damp ground, in the dark, unable to walk, watching the others. We immediately asked him what had happened to the children. We asked if they were playing a game. Poor Ollie could speak in nothing but a terrified whisper. He said there had been strange sounds, like someone trying to draw in a breath, slowly. The sound went all around. The children stopped what they were doing. And then things began rising up out of the ground. They looked like people made out of the mist, though they had no faces, except for hollow eyes. Too scared to look, Ollie had put his hands over his face. And when he finally did peek back a look, he saw the children standing in a line, holding their lanterns, walking away, walking together through the field, following the things that had come out of the mist. Folk don't much move to this town. You'll find that its residents are, for the most part, middle-aged adults or older. Many of us graying now, in fact, and we're tired and we don't much care for the city lifestyle. Truth be told, there have been a number of young couples and families with children that have tried to move in throughout the last few decades, but we've turned them all away. Oh sure, they kick up a fuss. Some of them get real insulted, but still, we refuse them.